Well, you know how sometimes the wind in North Dakota isn't cold? That happens, right? I mean, right?
Do you know that sometimes the wind blows in North Dakota? I don't know if you guys know this, but I've lived here a long time. Breaking news.
Right?
Sometimes the wind blows.
Yeah, that's right. But we're learning more about it in today's Morse Code of Weather. It's Wednesday after all, so Jacob, take it away.
That's right. Sometimes the wind could be good news for helping us warm up, like we're seeing this week when we're seeing 70s by the time we get to the end of the week.
That's right.
So meteorologists use all sorts of graphs to display data, right? This is one of the cooler ones, in my opinion, because it combines 3 different variables into one plot that I think is a combination of a bar chart and a pie chart. What it does is it combines wind speed, wind direction, and the frequency of the wind speed and direction into one chart right here. It's called a wind rose. This is the one for Bismarck, and what we can see throughout all of history is the main direction that the wind blows here in the capital city. The bigger bulge on this wind rose is up towards the northwest, meaning that most of the time throughout the year we see winds coming out of the northwest direction. Another peak in this wind rose is from the southeast. So the most common or prevailing wind directions in Bismarck, and this is true for most locations throughout the Peace Garden State, is having the wind out of the either northwest direction or out of the southeast direction. And the wind rose is a really cool way of displaying that data with the colors denoting the wind speed. So when we have the strongest winds is usually when the wind is coming out of that northwest direction. What this also correlates to is at the airports. The airports are set up across the country based on these prevailing wind directions. So we'll use the Bismarck Airport as an example. The runways are aligned from northwest to southeast, the main runway at least, with the secondary runway from the southwest to the northeast. But we'll focus on the main runway because that's where the winds are coming from the most common times. And when you're flying a plane or landing one, you want to be either going into the headwind or having that tailwind behind you. It's the most easiest for landing a plane versus a crosswind. So the wind rose helps people set up these airports in a manner that's easier for pilots to land planes. And the runways are also numbered based on the angle that the wind is coming from. So what the compass rose over here shows is those wind angles. It starts from the south, which is a little backwards, but it goes up towards the north and then back to the west, 360 degrees around the circle, with the 0 dropped at the end of the number. I know, a little confusing, but if we take a look at the Bismarck Airport, the main runway starts at angle 130 and then finishes at angle 310. So we call that runway 1331 for shorthand. So again, pretty cool connection there with aviation to the weather with our wind directions. Now, what I was referring to with the wind playing a role in when we warm up and the wind direction playing a big factor in that, this is a wind rose for all months throughout the year when we get temperatures above 70 degrees. When we see a substantial warm-up, you can see the bulge in the wind rose here is coming out of the south-southeast. So what that tells us is that when winds are coming out of the south-southeast, we can expect usually a warm-up to follow. When we focus specifically on the month of May, since now we're expecting that warm-up this week into the 70s, you can also see that indication on the wind rose with winds coming out of the south and southeast, which we are going to be seeing as we get later into this week, helping us to warm up into the 70s. The opposite is true during the winter months. So this is a wind rose for the winter months when temperatures are below freezing. And what happens is we see winds coming out of that northwest direction. And if you are familiar with the weather around here, usually when we see those strong northwesterly winds, that means that we're seeing that colder air being moved into the area. So now we'll end with talking about the spring months being the windiest months of the year. So April and May, generally the windiest months of the year, Kevin and Jody. So as we take a look at the winds for this week, a little bit optimistic, seeing that we see those southeast winds coming in, helping to warm us up into the 70s.
Okay, I won't complain about the wind if it brings us warmer temperatures.
And real quick here, the Gulf of Mexico, a moisture supply source, is to our south, right? So the southeast winds are helping transport more moisture. That means a chance for thunderstorms for the weekend.
I just had an aha moment.
You see that?
It all makes sense. You guys are making me smarter every Wednesday.
You don't need to go to college. We are your college of meteorology right here. Yeah.
I'm going to be a meteorologist by the time we're done here. Thanks as always, Jacob. Good stuff. Yeah.